A couple of passing observations. You see all the news, video, and audio of what's going on in Egypt? See all of it? There's tons of it. And yet 2 years ago when there was an uprising in Iran, or a year and a half ago, there wasn't very much at all. What we were getting were cell phone images. That's one big difference between those two countries. One is totalitarian and one is authoritarian. And I'm getting into this for a reason as we talk about Ronald Reagan with his 100th anniversary of his birthday coming on Sunday. There is a great piece by my buddy Michael Ledeen in pajamasmedia.com. We will link to this on my social sites and on marklevinshow.com. Ledeen's a Reaganite. And he writes, "We've had many alliances with friendly tyrants, from Stalin to Papa Doc, from Mubarak to Pinochet, from the Shah to the Saudi royal family. It's not an easy embrace. If you're the American president, you know or should know that it's only a matter of time before the American people, or at least a big chunk of public opinion, turn against the tyrant and demand that we support his domestic enemies, real and imagined. You don't want that, since you know that in the ensuing political free-for-all, you will be stained with the same spray of slime that besmirches the tyrants. On the other hand, if you pull the plug on the tyrant, you send two very dangerous messages. You tell all our allies that we're weak and unreliable, which discourages them, along with all the would-be friends and allies who are trying to figure out what to do, and you tell all our enemies that we are weak and we will run at the first sign of trouble. For extras, if the abandoned tyrant should win, he won't be a great friend of ours again." That's a bad parlay. Many people are now saying that it is always wrong for America to support dictators. Always, Ledeen writes, is too much. Was it wrong to join the Soviets in the war against the Axis? Would it have been better to sacrifice thousands of American lives in order to avoid the moral stain on our standard? Are tactics to be trashed in favor of a single strategy? As I keep saying, we are often compelled to choose between various evils, and it is a legitimate choice. It's the way the world generally works, in fact. It's rare to have a fully attractive and morally impeccable option. Plus, while tyrants are contrary to our national DNA, there are dictators and there are dictators. Some can be convinced to democratize, and those chances are increased if they trust us and are willing to work with us. One way to get from dictatorship to democracy, and that is our national mission, is to get friendly tyrants to liberalize their policies. Peaceful transitions have been accomplished, and by the way, in societies that were widely believed to be intrinsically, almost genetically, authoritarian. Take two, Taiwan and Spain, both of which democratized from the top down. Tyrants don't like this process at all, obviously. It drains their power and may even cost them their job. And they worry about darker consequences like standing trial for various criminal acts from repression to corruption. That's why Franco laid the groundwork for democracy, but left the actual process to his successors. But the Taiwanese actually did it. The ruling party created a system that was guaranteed to remove the party from power, perhaps only temporarily, but perhaps for a long time. It could not have happened without the American help and perhaps, I don't know this, I only suspect it, promises of safe haven if things got very bad. Ledeen says, "We should have insisted that the Shah liberalize Iran." Yes, I know he did some of it. And I know that Iran was, by orders of magnitude, the most liberal and open society in the Muslim Middle East. But he stopped that process in its tracks, thereby provoking the insurrection that produced the Islamic Revolution. We should have insisted that Mubarak liberalize Egypt. Every now and then an American president or Secretary of State said so, but then we backed off. Now we have a serious crisis with no good solution. What to do? Ledeen says, "I think the answer is obvious. We have to stick with Mubarak all the way down if he is indeed going down. We can talk about reform as much as we wish, but it's as crazy to try and institute reform in the middle of an insurrection as it is to raise taxes in the middle of a depression. But we have to say above all privately that we're with him, and that we want serious change in the future. We will not abandon him. That is the right policy, even if Mubarak goes down. If we do that, we can say to his successors, quote, we were loyal to him because he was a good ally, and we do not abandon loyal allies. If you're good allies, we will be loyal to you too, even at your darkest hour. If we bail, then both our allies, other allies, and Mubarak's successors will know that America is not loyal, cannot be relied upon, and thus that it is a mistake to cater to America's wishes about democracy, for example. So as history unfolds through paradoxes, we have identified another one. If you really want to advance democracy, it will sometimes be necessary to stand foursquare behind a dictator. If we had pursued our national mission for the past many decades, we might have avoided the necessity of doing this unpleasant thing. But here we are. If we jump ship now, as it seems we are, it is odds on to make things worse. Michael Ledeen, Problem of the Friendly Tyrant. And I believe he echoes what Reagan said about the Sha of Iran. And we'll play that one last time just to remind you. Cut 11, go.
I did criticize the president because of our undercutting of what was a stalwart ally, the Sha of Iran. And I am not at all convinced that he was that far out of line with his people, or that they wanted that to happen. The Shah had done our bidding and carried our load in the Middle East for quite some time. And I did think that it was a blot on our record that we let him down. Have things gotten better? The Shah, whatever he might have done, was building low-cost housing, had taken land away from the mullahs and was distributing it to the peasants so they could be landowners, things of that kind. But we turned it over to a maniacal fanatic who has slaughtered thousands and thousands of people, calling it executions.
And Reagan was a very realistic man, principled and realistic. You treat an ally one way, even though you may not like their government and their tactics, and you treat an enemy a different way. The enemy you want to see crumble. The enemy you do want to see an uprising in their midst. Here is Reagan, January 26, 1982, State of the Union speech about the Soviets. Cut 8, go.
Building a more peaceful world requires a sound strategy and the national resolve to back it up. When radical forces threaten our friends, when economic misfortune creates conditions of instability, when strategically vital parts of the world fall under the shadow of Soviet power, our response can make the difference between peaceful change or disorder and violence. That's why we've laid such stress not only on our own defense, but on our vital foreign assistance program. Your recent passage of the Foreign Assistance Act sent a signal to the world that America will not shrink from making the investments necessary for both peace and security. Our foreign policy must be rooted in realism, not naivete or self-delusion. A recognition of what the Soviet Empire is about is the starting point.
Okay,
Winston
stop
Churchill...
there. A recognition about what the Islam Nazis are about is a good starting point, too. That is an enemy that is an existential enemy. In other words, our very survival is at stake. And should they get control of nuclear weapons or biological weapons, or have the capacity to build them by taking over a third world country, but a relatively, I know this sounds oxymoronic, but a relatively advanced third world country as far as third world countries go, such as Egypt, that is a direct threat to the United States of America. To throw ourselves into the breach and to say, hurry up, whatever's going to happen, hurry up and happen. And then from the sidelines to encourage an organization that was established in 1928, the Muslim Brotherhood, established in order to destroy an ally of the Third Reich, to tell them to embrace peace and democracy, is as absurd as anything I've ever heard. Let me ask you this question. If you today, an American, had to choose between Hosni Mubarak and the Muslim Brotherhood, which spawned Al-Qaeda, which includes Hamas, which would you pick as an American concerned about American security? Exactly. It's not even a close call. So what those who are claiming that this is a democracy movement, and pray to God it is, what they don't want to discuss is what if it's not. What they won't tell us is what do we do if it doesn't turn out well, which is most likely, let's be honest. We'll see. This is why Reagan felt you treat enemies one way and you treat allies another. You don't try and topple or encourage the toppling of an ally, but you work like hell to topple an enemy. And when you topple that enemy, yes, we would like that enemy replaced with a form of democratic government. By the way, when I say democratic government, when I speak about the United States, I'm well aware we're not a democracy. I'm well aware we're a republic. But these are terms I shouldn't have to explain over and over again. So some have said this is the Berlin Wall moment in Egypt. I'm thinking, you've got your country screwed up. You've got your alliances screwed up. But when we come back, we will hear that Berlin Wall moment from the man himself, Ronald Reagan, when he was doing everything possible to put a dagger into the heart of the center of communism. And that threat today is in the form of Islamo-Nazism. And by the way, still some communism in the form of Red China. But what do you think about a president of the United States who reaches out to the Muslim Brotherhood? He tells the American people that our policy is to spread universal values. Well, which value exactly are we spreading? Well, you reach out to the Muslim Brotherhood. Oh, we're told that's realpolitik because they may take over. And yet it's not realpolitik in dealing with Mubarak. From him we demand democracy. From the Muslim Brotherhood we demand something they can never give us. Civility, humanity, peace. Back to that Brandenburg Gate. Here's Reagan, June 12, 1987. Go.
Today I say, as long as this gate is closed, as long as this scar of a wall is permitted to stand, it is not the German question alone that remains open, but the question of freedom for all mankind. In the 1950s, Khrushchev predicted, "We will bury you." But in the West today, we see a free world that has achieved a level of prosperity and well-being unprecedented in all human history. In the communist world, we see failure. There is one sign the Soviets can make that would be unmistakable, that would advance dramatically the cause of freedom and peace. General Secretary Gorbachev, if you seek peace, if you seek prosperity for the Soviet Union and Eastern Europe, if you seek liberalization, come here to this gate. Mr. Gorbachev, open this gate. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
You know, as I listen to that, it is amazing how desperate subsequent presidents have wanted to find their Brandenburg Gate moment, is it not? This is really what Obama means when he says he feels some kinship to Reagan. That is, he's looking for that moment. He went to Germany and he spoke, and they wanted you to believe it was his Brandenburg Gate moment. It wasn't. He went to Cairo and he spoke. They wanted you to believe it was another moment of despair. We'll be right back.
You know, I received an invitation that said, please come to Ellis Island July 4th for the 100th birthday celebration of an American institution. Somebody goofed. My birthday isn't until February. And it really won't be my 100th. Although I've been around for a while. I can remember when a hot story broke and the reporters would run in yelling, "Stop the chisels."
All right, ladies and gentlemen, let us take our first call, shall we? Alex in San Francisco, the great KSFO, a Democrat. Go.
Yeah, my God, are you going to go to bed tonight with a picture of him under your pillow?
No. I'm going to have a picture of Obama on my ceiling. I always have to stare at the Messiah, you know. You have a question, or should I cut you off like the miscreant that you are?
Yeah, you did last time. You didn't let...
All right, we're going to cut you off again. You haven't asked the question. You're just a punk. Here was his question that he can never get out because he's got to take his shot. If Reagan was so great, why did he raise taxes? Now, ladies and gentlemen, Reagan cut taxes far more deeply and broadly than he ever raised them. But I've explained this many times. But it's like explaining everything else to the left. They're incoherent. They're drones. They're haters. Reagan cut a deal with the liberal Democrats. And the deal was, for every dollar he would increase taxes, they would cut spending by 2. They raised taxes and they never cut spending. At around the same time, he cut another deal with them. That was that there'd be about 2 million illegal aliens, 2.3 million. He would give them amnesty if they would appropriate the funds to secure the border. Alan Simpson was involved in that, the guy running around now putting down everybody else. And the Democrats, of course, went for the amnesty and never helped secure the border. I know these things because I watched. I was in the government watching these things. So it's not like Reagan said, hey, I'm going to raise taxes on everybody. Come on, spread the wealth. Kill the rich. He cut a deal, and he never cut one again. We'll be right back.